Welcome to Nugget 207 with Steve Groman. In our last Nugget, we mentioned how we had hiked to Specimen Ridge, so we thought, well, this is an appropriate place to do that Nugget, right?
Just show everybody about it.
The first time that we went to the base of the hike was a real long time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we were a little bit younger.
But we didn't take the hike because that was one of our first visits to Yellowstone. It wasn't our first one, but we had a lot of things to do and didn't want to take the time to do this.
Yeah, there would have been no time. And we didn't even know how much there would be no time.
True. Well, with that comment, I want to encourage you that if you should, not if you, but when you go to Yellowstone National Park, give yourself at least 4 days, at least, and possibly a week. I know that doesn't make sense. There's so much to see and do, excluding this hike that we'll be talking about, but it's time consuming and there's lengthy distance between places.
Right.
And the going is slow.
Well, the traffic can be horrendous, especially if there's a buffalo on the middle of the road.
Yeah,
it blocks up traffic for an hour.
Oh, Bill was out in the road the other day, and we were stuck in traffic for over an hour.
Yeah, over an hour again.
And we're like, seriously? For a buffalo? You'll see plenty. Just keep driving. But when people are entering and they see their first buffalo, it's hard to resist, right?
It is pretty bizarre, especially when you get up close to them and realize how big and nasty looking they look like. You know, I think they're
pretty
cool.
gnarly.
They are
pretty gnarly. Buffalo needs a bath. In Lesson 9, Rock Solid Proof, you talk about the aftermath of the flood. And not only in that lesson, but in years past, you always talked about Specimen Ridge. So why don't you tell our listeners what you said about Specimen Ridge and the sign that once was there, but is no longer there?
Yeah, they took it down. Specimen Ridge is a very, very fascinating ridge because of what it shows and what they say about it. But anyway, let me read some of the sign. It says, fossil forest. Across the valley rise the slopes of Specimen Ridge. But the forest you see there today is only the latest chapter in a remarkable story. Buried within the volcanic rocks that compose the mountain are 27 distinct layers of fossil forest which flourished 50 million years ago. There are definitely fossil trees there, there's no doubt about it. But notice what it says here. It is volcanic rock. Well, it was a volcano that blew. But they say there are 27 distinct layers of fossil forest. Now, it's not a distinct tree. It's distinct layers of fossil forest which flourished 50 million years ago. Well, that would be purely a belief system at the timing because nobody was there to see 50 million years ago. But the problem is there are 27 interwoven distinct layers of forests of trees. Well, that's not possible because you cannot have a tree buried turning to stone to become a fossil forest halfway up and still remaining alive on the top side to interlock with some more of these forests.
It's foolish.
It is foolish.
It's illogical. I don't even know how it got this far to even be written on a sign.
And then the sign goes on. There's another kind of an attachment sign to it. It says, sporadic volcanic eruptions occurring over a period of about 50 million years buried many successive forests under blankets of ash and volcanic debris. 50 million years of sporadic volcanic reactions and eruptions for 27 distinct layers interwoven? No, that's just not really possible. But then it goes on to say, many stumps still stand upright in the same sites where they grew millions of years ago. And folks, that is just simply not even possible either. There's no way they can be standing upright where they grew millions of years ago. You've got to realize some of these things, when the volcanoes go off, and it creates the devastation even at Mount St. Helens, and a lot of these trees are floating upright, but a lot of these trees are floating upside down. These trees, we've been to them, they've been thrown for who knows how many hundreds of yards.
This is a simulation of Mount St. Helens.
Right, this is just a drawing simulation of Mount St. Helens. The principle's still the same. Oftentimes, these trees are thrown hundreds and hundreds of yards like a big giant barrow and impaled into the ground upside down or leaning on its side. Absolutely impossible to be sporadic volcanic eruptions over 50 million years and leaving 27 distinct layers. This stuff all happened at the same time.
I wish that places like this would actually have a second sign out. Actually, I'm glad the sign's gone, frankly. They ought to have a second sign that says the creationist view. That would only be fair, right?
Yeah, it would.
And we would say something like, as you climb up to Specimen Ridge, you will see evidence of Noah's flood, as there are trees interlocking in different layers of ash and volcanic debris as they were placed there during Noah's flood, as volcanic eruptions occurred and the fountains of the great deep broke up. And everybody go, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense.
That kind of makes sense. When you see things like this sign, if there's a petrified tree, kind of a lone petrified tree,
right,
in the same region, but
well, it's just down the highway. It's on a side road, and we've gone there a couple times, but we only really took pictures this one time years ago.
But notice the picture here. These trees are not just cut off, or these are big trees, and they just snapped off a lot of times. That's an enormous amount of force to just boom, just blast that thing, cut it, just smack it and shear it right off.
Well, what is interesting about this sign is that they actually do show a photograph of the trees that are being snapped off at Mount St. Helens, which Mount St. Helens proves the creationist view of the mechanism of the flood and how we see what we see today. But
yes.
let me read this sign right now, what it says. Petrified tree, subtropical Yellowstone. Well, that's
really interesting. That would be pre-flood Yellowstone time frame.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a good sentence. Good statement. Title. This petrified redwood is a clue to a warmer, damper, more violent Yellowstone landscape. Anatomically, the trunk is indistinguishable from present-day redwoods in California. Well, it's a pre-flood redwood, and we go see the post-flood redwoods.
They were everywhere. I mean, tropical and subtropical today is not necessarily only tropical and subtropical pre-flood, because it was everything was the same. It was a stable environment. So yes, you'd expect to find these things in these kind of places.
This just verifies and proves our point.
The pre-flood world, yes.
As another side note, if you've never been to the redwoods in California, you gotta go. They are amazing. They're beautiful. They're just perfect.
Abundance of super big, thick forest.
And the volume of water that those trees drink a day it's unfathomable. Continuing on. When a chain of volcanoes erupted here in the Eocene times, 50 million years ago, they triggered massive landslides into mountain and valley streams. The rolling mix of ash, water, and sand buried whole forests before the trees could rot. Abundant silica in the volcanic flow plugged living cells, creating forest of stone. Again, that's an accurate description of what happened.
Timing's just a bit off.
But that 50 million years ago, they have to throw in these evolutionary times. And even if they didn't want to put a creationist sign up there with the opposing view, take out that line. Take out the Eocene time and the 50 million and just talk about what happened and leave it to your own conclusion.
Right,
if you're an evolutionist, you can read the sign and view it the way you want.
There's no evidence. They don't have to call it that.
This single tree just stands alone out there. Not sure why it's alone. I guess because the land hasn't eroded away and not exposed to more. In the scheme of things, it's not all that far from Specimen Ridge, and we do go by it on our other visits. So let me go ahead and interject here. In Nugget 208, we're going to be doing like a photo journal of the beauty shown at Yellowstone National Park. And as you can see, what God did during the flood and what happened and how he's left his evidence. As you say, as he's left his evidence everywhere. And Yellowstone is just a conglomeration of all kinds of geologic events that happened during the flood. Stunning, stunning photographs you'll see. So you won't want to miss Nugget 208.
Interesting, because when we went to Specimen Ridge, it's not really a ridge, it's more like a steep mountain. That's what it is. The ground is extremely loose, and it was, now we're avid hikers and such, and it was all fours all the way up this thing, and it was brutal all the way to the top. And if you recall, you had quite the celebration when we got to the top, right?
Oh, I cried my head off.
You literally cried. It was so brutal.
The three of us independently calculated what we thought, how many miles we have hiked, and that was even probably 4 years ago. 4 years ago that we calculated. But up until that point, we all came to the number around 10,000 miles that we have hiked. I know that sounds crazy, but we have hiked a lot for many, many years. And this was the worst hike of all of them. It was only a mile and a half, but it's the incline.
It's not just the steepness of it, but the looseness. The looseness. The ground just gives way from under you, which makes you have to tighten up and flinch other muscles and things to try to hold on. When the feet go, you got to use the hands.
We didn't know. Our feet hurt so bad for days because we've been gripping. I would wear my climbing shoes the next time I ever
we made it to the top, and it was good.
Paul wasn't with us, and I told him, I said, I would never do that climb again, except if he wanted to go. That would be the only reason I would ever go there. These huge petrified trees, Steve's just sitting here on this one stump.
They're beautiful because the tree itself, the organic material of the tree, as it rots away, it, of course, was buried, but as it rots away, the minerals in the dirt and the soil and the water and everything are replacing one at a time, molecule by molecule, and that's why a tree looks like what it used to be. Any petrified anything, any fossil, it looks like what it used to be because it's an exact replica of it, because as it rots away, the minerals are being forced into the same area, and it takes on the same shape. They're beautiful, beautiful specimens up there. The gorgeous colors. It's well worth it if you can, if you're up to it.
We don't mean to scare you, but...
Yeah.
Well,
if you're up to it, go for it.
What was neat about it were there were 3 other sets of hikers. We were able to determine that they also were creationists because they have taken down the signs. We started calling and asking and talking to different rangers and asking about the trail to Specimen Ridge, and they acted like they didn't know what we were talking about. There was a mom and her 2 young homeschool boys, and as we were going back down, they were still on their ascent up. Her boys, they had given up, and they were probably 8 and 12, and I thought, if I did better than an 8 or 12-year-old boy, I deserve like a cookie or something.
Really?
But she said her boys just couldn't go any farther, and I was like, oh, you guys, you rest. You've got to go. You've got to make it up. And we went to this one tree because creationists do go up there, and we've seen some photographs of some of these trees, and that was our biggest aim. And we had gotten to the top, but on the other side, you had to walk down an even steeper section to get down. And I told Steve, I said, you're just going to have to go down there by yourself. I can't go down there, and you're going to have to take your first selfie. So you took your first selfie down there. Remember, you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I said, but I can't take it.
Can't go that fast. When your legs turn to jello, just let them rest a minute and keep going.
Well, it took more than a minute, but you did convince me to finally get down there, and we found a deer trail, and we were able to get down to the specific tree that we wanted to, and I was able to take these pictures. So that was good. And then you can see the views here, and this is when I said, do you see a piece of cardboard or something? Because I'm just sliding down this backside, but
yeah, it'd be a great slide, wouldn't
there
it?
wasn't any cardboard. And actually going down was just as tough because you got to do like a billy goat, mountain goat, 4-wheel drive.
You don't want to slide the whole way down. That would not be good.
As long as you slid, it would be all right. But if you started tumbling, you'd kill yourself.
That's no doubt why they took the sign down. They really don't encourage people to go to these places. But, it's still there, and God did it. It is evidence of the flood. It's like, we're going to get there. We are going to do this because it's awesome.
That is a valid point. They may have taken down the signs not only because of creationists have popularized it through different creation ministries, but because of the danger involved. Right. And only probably creationists, homeschoolers, people that have some old material that know about Specimen Ridge even know to go there.
And a lot of things, because of these issues, have been closed down. They've been fenced off. I'm really glad they just took the signs down so nobody can find it, or it's harder to find it, but yet not totally fenced it off so nobody can get there. Because they've done that. A whole lot of people have done that with a lot of different things, and this is definitely worth the trip up. If you have half a day at least to do it, and you're out that way, do it.
Wear good shoes. All right. Well, we need to wrap this up. I want to encourage you to go back and watch Nugget 206, where we talked about some of the geysers at lesser-known West Thumb Geyser Basin, and Nugget 208 when we give you a photo journal of gorgeous Yellowstone National Park. Thank you.